everyone's doing some kind of drug. And I'm already smoking weed, drinking, or having some kind of mind altering substance in my body every single day for the past, I don't know, 10 years at this point. So I said, fuck it, why not? And that's when I got introduced to opiates. And
Wow.
that's when my battle with substance abuse took off to the next level. My mom passed away. My life went completely dark and became completely unmanageable. I was risking my life every single day. I overdosed twice, right? The last time, it took 6 cans of Narcan to bring me back to life. 6
Wow.
fucking cans of Narcan, bro. That same
Wow.
night,
And we are back. Money Mindset Mentoring Podcast. We're super excited today from New York. We've got Joe Rivera. Joe is a coach. He is a speaker. He's a goal crusher and really a guy, as his website says, paradigm shifter. Now, I really want to dive into paradigm shifter because I have not seen that title before. So, Joe, really welcome to the show and great to have you. You know, when we first talked, it was awesome to see, a lot of the lines of people that it really makes the world feel so small, where you can say that, we're just getting to know each other and we could probably find a bunch of people that we've instantly have relationships with our the 2 degrees of Kevin Bacon, so to speak. And it's amazing to see how small the world really is.
yeah, it definitely is a small world. That's why connecting with people is so important, man, because you never know who you're going to see again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, one of the things when we talk about seeing people again is I'm sure there's people that you've run into from the past who saw you, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and see where you are now and sort of see a lot of the transformation and stuff that you've gone through. What sort of happens in those moments when you run into those people? Are they overjoyed for where you're going? Or are they like, what happens in those situations?
Yeah, man, if somebody would have known me from 10 years ago, and they see me today, they definitely feel and see that transformation. Just by looking at me, you know what I mean? It is a complete difference. Where my headspace is, conversing with me, I mean, just all of it, the growth that has happened over that 10 years, with that transformation, it's been amazing.
Now, when we look at the transformation, I always find it very interesting because you look at the past tense and the future tense and the present tense. And we see that when we go through a transformation, there's always something that stays consistent with us. So something that, like when we talk about, we had a conversation around Grant Cardone, and we talk about how when he was, in his earlier life, he was a drug addict and he was making a lot of bad decisions. And he had an addiction problem. He was addicted to drugs. And his uh, the school or whatever that he went to, the rehab place said, "Hey, you're never going to get off this. You're always going to be addicted to something. You have an addictive personality." And when he said, "Well, actually, if I just transfer my addictive personality, instead of being addicted to drugs, I'm going to be addicted to success. I'm going to be addicted to my family. I'm going to be addicted to my community." And he pivoted something that would be remained in his persona throughout the whole thing. If you look at your transformation from where were you at the beginning to where you are today, what is the one thing that it would say, this actually remained uniform, even though I made these massive changes?
It's very similar to what Grant went through, right? Because I struggled with drugs and alcohol, and addiction is a huge part of my story. And learning to utilize that addiction towards my advantage in other areas of life, success, spirituality. I mean, I'm so addicted to my spiritual connection. Um, family, love, all of it. Just being able to utilize that towards areas of my life that are going to make me progress rather than regress is kind of where my addiction went towards.
Interesting. It's funny because what you're saying is something that would be perceived as a negative is actually something that you transformed to being a positive.
Yeah, my past doesn't define me. I don't look at it as a negative at all. I actually say thank you to my past for making me who I am today. Thank you for getting me to where I am and where I'm going in life. Without that past, I wouldn't be who I am today.
Yeah, it's, I had another fellow on who talked a little bit about the hero story and the idea that, you know, a lot of people who are massively successful come from a situation of, really bad, either, as you say, drugs or anything that, financial pressures or whatever it was. And then they push through, and they can, because it's so bad, they have to push through to get out of it or they're going to succumb to it. And when you look at that, what was that moment, that inception point that you went, I got to make a change?
Man, overdosing twice, almost losing my life. Um, Being sick and tired of being sick and tired, bro. I was tired of writing that obituary and just wanted to begin creating a legacy again, man.
And so you hit that rock bottom, and then you looked around, because I always find it interesting. This is something that is probably the most important thing to me for anybody looking at making a change, because change is not something that comes easy, right? Change is something where, it's very difficult, it's very challenging. And the idea of saying, you're writing your obituaries, but it probably wasn't the first time that you did that, or even the second time that you did that, but at the third or the fourth time or whatever, and you're saying, boom, this is what brought me across the goal line.
Yeah, because it was hitting that bottom, right? Because dude, I went from Park Avenue to Park Bench. I lost everything. I even almost lost my life.
Hmm.
I had my dream job in the financial industry as a stockbroker. In the early 2000s, I'm 25 years old, making seven figures a year. I should feel like I'm on top of the world at this point. But seven figures a year, that wasn't good enough. Because I lived in a world with a belief system of never enough. I wanted more. I wanted eight figures or nine figures. And at this point in my life, being spiritually bankrupt, money's the only high power that I know. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make more money. I'm putting in late nights at the office one evening, and this dude, we call him Johnny Connect. We call him that because he had the connections to get his hands on anything you could imagine. And keep in mind, we're in New York on Wall Street. This dude swears that he's part of the mafia. So he comes up to me and he says, "Hey, Joe, you think you're a top producer now? Take this little round pill and forget about it. You're going to produce even more." And Wall Street's already known as Drug Street. Everyone's doing some kind of drug. And I'm already smoking weed, drinking, or having some kind of mind altering substance in my body every single day for the past, I don't know, 10 years at this point. So I said, fuck it, why not? And that's when I got introduced to opiates. And
Wow.
that's when my battle with substance abuse took off to the next level. My mom passed away. My life went completely dark and became completely unmanageable. I was risking my life every single day. I overdosed twice, right? The last time, it took 6 cans of Narcan to bring me back to life. Six
Wow.
fucking cans of Narcan, bro. That same
Wow.
night, I'm laying in the hospital bed. I wake up. I pull the EKG electrodes off my body, leave the hospital against medical advice. And then when I get outside, it's the middle of winter. I'm in a hospital gown, shivering, looking like a crackhead, like Pookie from New Jack City, because of all the opiates that were being taken out of my system. And the first thing I do, I call the dealer again to go get high. A week or two later, my sister invited me for a self help event. And at that event, I don't remember exactly what it was, but something clicked. And I looked at my sister, she looked at me, and she knew exactly what I was going to say. We both started crying. And then the words came out. The words my family was waiting to hear for over a decade. I said, I don't want to do this, sis. I'm a shell of my true self. like I said, I was tired of writing my obituary, man. I said I want to begin creating this legacy again. I want to go back to the person that I was. I knew he was in there, just couldn't be able to bring it out with drugs and alcohol in my system. And that's when I made the decision to achieve sobriety.
That's amazing. And that was how long ago?
This was back. My mom passed in 2016, 2017.
2017. Now, did you go back to Wall Street after that, or what did you do as your pivot?
So after achieving sobriety, I was able to build another multi-million-dollar pre-IPO marketing company. And even though I was crushing it and living an incredible life, I mean, something was missing, bro. And God kept nudging at me and pulling at me and telling me that my journey is not complete and that I had a bigger purpose in life. And that's when I said, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm not going to argue with the man upstairs. He's going to win every time. And that's when I decided to build my coaching and speaking platform. And man, was he right as always? Because no drug, no alcohol will ever give me that euphoric feeling that I get when I'm able to empower someone to transform their life. That's the gift that keeps on giving for me, man. That's where I was able to find my purpose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think the idea of looking outside of yourself with purpose and looking to that higher power, I think, a lot of people find that that is such a mechanism to rely on something greater. I think somebody said to me once, they said, asking for help is not giving up. Asking for help is committing to the results you're looking for and putting your ego aside and reaching out because your success is greater than your ego and your commitment to that. And so asking for help is the best possible way you can show that you're committed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and you nailed it on the head. I mean, removing that ego, right? And realizing that it's okay to ask for help, right? And it's not just drugs and alcohol, right? It's in entrepreneurship, right? People struggle with their ego getting in the way. They don't want to ask for people to help them. When you ask for help is when those mountains get moved and those doors really start opening, right? So I think that asking for help in every aspect of life is important. And my story is not unique, right? Many people struggle with vice.
Well,
Mine,
your story is unique where you say that you overcame it because I have friends and who
mm,
are in that lost in that world and they didn't make it.
yeah,
And it's they were good people. They just got caught up in making bad decisions,
yeah,
and those bad decisions took their lives.
yeah.
And so that's something that will always be some. I have 3 young kids, and just knowing what the world's going through, is to try to arm them with the strength to, not succumb to those situations because you are an anomaly in that situation.
Mm, thank you.
Statistically, you are an anomaly in that situation.
Appreciate that.
So never diminish that fact because that is definitely something where, you've done great things to come out of it.
I appreciate that. I
So,
was referring to it being because my story was drugs and alcohol, right? There's many people that struggle with vice. Someone else might be gambling, sex, shopping, overeating, whatever that vice is. It interferes with us being our true self by having us isolate, not being fully present. It creates character defects, right? For some, life may become unmanageable. They may lack direction. Some people lose motivation in their self esteem, right? But that's not a way to live life. There's a better way to live life. And I believe that closing the gap, I believe living in purpose closes the gap between spirituality and true wealth. And when you're struggling with vices like that, you can't live in your purpose. You can't have that connection because there's something blocking it there. You're allowing that vice to block that.
yeah, and I think you're absolutely right to say that there are other vices out there. Well, on the surface, they're less dramatic. When you talk about, people who are addicted to food, people are addicted to, I mean, the big one is video games. A lot of people are addicted to video
Yeah.
games, addicted to social media. I mean, all these things that are out there, in the front, it doesn't look so bad because people can wash it off saying, hey, I'm spending time with friends or I'm catching on what the families are doing. But it's the real reason is to why are you doing it and how is it impacting other parts of your life, I think is where that's where people will struggle with those addictions.
Absolutely.
And now when we look at the talks, when you're going to go out and you're talking it from, the life perspective, we'll talk about business in a minute, but let's talk about the life perspective when you're talking with people. Give me a couple, nuggets that people can use. If they are in that low point and they're listening to this right now and they're saying, you know what, yeah, I do play way too many video games, or I'm on social media too much, or I'm consuming way too much alcohol, or I eat too much, or any of the vices that are out there, what can they do? Like give them some tips.
Well, first off, it all starts with the mindset, right? Because our thoughts become things, and I'm a big believer in that. So you got to really work on changing the way you think, right? Because that's going to change your behaviors, right? It's when you start making that change in your thought process and realizing that you just start by like changing the routine up. Your routine is so important. So important. What are you waking up to do? Like where's your drive? Where's your purpose? When you wake up, what's the first thing that you're doing? Are you grabbing that device and looking at your cell phone and looking at your text messages? That's not the way to do it either, right? So I think that really having a routine to be able to retrain your brain is important, because for me, man, putting those drugs and alcohol down, that was the easy part, bro. It was up here, changing the mindset. That's where the work was. Learning how to live life again without that vice. Learning how to operate and go about every day, right? Because it was a part of me. Every day I woke up, the first thing I looked for was drugs and alcohol. I had to have that paradigm shift and change that to now it's prayer and meditation.
Yeah, I love that. I think, when you talk about, and I think this is extremely important, that people, I heard this guy, I think it was Chris Williamson is the one who said this, is he said that, everybody who stands there at the line of the 100-meter dash, they have the mindset to win. They're there. It's not like they're lined up saying, I'm going to come in last place. So the idea is motivation is something that everybody can have, but discipline shows up when motivation doesn't. And that I think is extremely important. And discipline presents itself through the idea of having habitual routines. If you get up every morning and you make your bed, that's a routine. If you get up every morning and you go outside and take some deep breaths, that's a routine. Prayer is another one. Anything that you can start off your day that gets you on the right page, I think making that a routine makes it harder to add other things into that system.
Yeah, absolutely. And it has to start with a routine. That's what starts everything, right? It's either going to be a productive routine or a routine that doesn't bring production, that you start regressing in life, that you go on the wrong route. But it all starts with a routine.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. Now, once they've started the routine and they're seeing the habits starting to form, what's the next step? What happens after that point?
Repetition, man. Repetition is the mother of skill. You got to keep doing it. I mean, that's just the bottom line. So after you've put those reps in and that really becomes your everyday routine in life and you're going forward with it, then you got to start by having clarity on your targets, right? What do you want to achieve? What's the target? Where do you want to go next? Right? Because you could pray, you could meditate, you could go to the gym, start your day, but if you're not clear on where you want to go in life, you're going to just keep spinning your wheels. You got to have clarity, or else it's turmoil.
Yeah, so when you're talking about baselining, you're saying the baselining is through the repetition of a routine. And once you've created that baseline, that sort of really gives you that foundation that now you're stabilized. And once you're stabilized, then you can start saying, I've got clarity now because I'm not wobbly. I can now look up and say, what can I do next? And what can my trajectory look like? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can't say what am I going to do next without being clear on what you want to do next, right? You have to know where you're going in order to go there, in order to make things happen, or else you're going to just stay in the same place and going around in circles and doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And that's insanity.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So now you start looking at the idea of you set an objective. You've got your baseline through your, having habits, and that habits then you formulate and solidify those habits, cement them through repetition. Now you've said, okay, now based on that, I now know where I'm going because I've set clarity as to where I want to go. Then what do you do next after that point? What's the third thing that you do?
Write down your goals.
Mm,
Write it down. Don't just say that I want to do this and then expect it to happen. You got to write it down. Write down your goals. Look at them every single day. In the morning, look at them again in the evening. Say them through prayer and meditation. Put that shit into existence, man. Because having clarity on the target is important, but continuously reminding yourself what those goals are, looking at them so you see it in front of you, and you uh, have that motivation to go forward with it.
absolutely. I think the idea of putting something in writing, I think Brandon Dawson, who wrote the 9-Figure Mindset, he says, what you think is what you say is what you do, and what you do becomes your legacy. I think something along that lines.
Mm.
And I think the idea of actually verbalizing it is something that's critically important. And when you talk about the frequency of talking about your goals once in the morning and once at night, what it does is it reduces. It's like autopilot on your car. If
Mm.
your autopilot's checking on your car, once a month, you're going to be in the ditch in about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But if your autopilot on your goals is once in the morning, once at night, your framework for error is a day. It's not a week or a month. And so by bringing in the bumpers to kind of keep you more in line with moving towards your goal, by doing that, I think that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah. I mean, it also puts things into perspective for you, right? Because you're constantly reminding yourself what you have, what that target is, and that you want to achieve it. The more you see it in front of you, the more you start believing it. Seeing is believing, man.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Having faith in yourself, you gotta believe in yourself, and the more you see that in front of you, what you want to accomplish, the better chance there is to accomplish it. It
Well, I
might not
think
happen
that,
today, it
yeah,
might not happen tomorrow, but eventually it's going to go down.
yeah, and I think that's actually a really, there's two things you said there that I think are really important. Number one is when you break those goals down into manageable chunks, like the idea of, I'm going to, win a jujitsu tournament. Well, I might not win the worlds today, but I could win a local tournament today.
Mm.
That could be one thing. And even if I come in second place, maybe the next one will come in second place, the next one will come in first, and then I'll be able to go to the worlds. But those small wins that start building up to the bigger wins allows you to have that connection to the bigger goal, because success makes success, right? That was the first thing that you said, and then the second thing that you said was the idea of when you, and now I just lost my train of thought. I was like, man, that first one was so darn good. And I was like, I love it. I love it because you can build on the success as you move forward. I'll remember the other one a little later on, but I think
Yeah,
that
you got to
was,
celebrate. You got to celebrate those successes, right? And
yeah.
people get caught up in the hustle and bustle, and they get caught up on what goes wrong, right, quote unquote, or where they failed at, and they don't take time to celebrate the successes, right, and really understand that you got to take those in and have gratitude for them, because those successes, when you take in that gratitude and you celebrate it, it does something happens in your brain where you remember it, and the next time you have a setback, or that failure, which those failures lead to success, the way it's going to help you lead to that success is when you remember the time that you were successful, and you have that gratitude, and you're able to utilize that because you want that feeling again. It's that dopamine that goes off.
Yeah, I think the idea that's probably one of the biggest challenges with management when management does weekly or biweekly reviews. They use those most of the time as corrective action moments. They don't use it as build up moments. And where management could come into that situation in talking to that sales rep or that person in the factory, whoever they're talking to, And if they can start off that meeting talking about successes, no matter how small they are that the person had that week, the mindset shifts immediately to something that is productive. Like, we are
Yes.
collaborative. We're working here for the betterment of you, the betterment of me, the betterment of the company and your community around you. And we're going to work really hard to do that. So let's celebrate. Let's start off in celebration. And I think you're 100% right on that. Is that the more that you can celebrate? I've heard people say that the only, I think this was Sherry from, again, Grant's office, said the only emotion they allow in the office is an emotion of celebration. And because, that is probably the most productive emotion you can have. I know in jujitsu or any sort of MMA, if you have the emotion of anger or any of these things, it's going to cloud your judgment and you're not going to be able to operate effectively. Typically people under stress, they go to their lowest form of training. But if somebody's in celebration, they have a chance to go to their highest form of training.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just celebration brings joy. It brings joy into the moment, and being able to appreciate that moment. And it's so important to do that.
I love it. So the idea is, if you're in that situation that's very difficult, you're going to start off by, not relying on motivation, because motivation can be fleeting. You're going to rely on just like less repetitive sets of habits, and just create an anchor of those habits and build a routine. And then once you build that routine, that baseline is going to allow you to have the clarity to step out of the mud and really look around and start to set your targets. But your targets can only be supported by your goals. And those goals need to be reviewed on a very frequent, maybe twice a day kind of situation to ensure that you're in check. And then all the while, no matter whether you're at the day one, or your day 100 or 5 years from now, every moment you're celebrating a success, no matter how small.
Absolutely.
I love it, man.
Absolutely.
That's beautiful. That's
And
beautiful.
and I think a really important piece at the end of that is you got to take action. You got to take action because, I mean, you could write the goals down all you want. You could have clarity on the target all you want, but if you're not taking action, nothing's going to get done. I mean, we've seen it so many. I've seen it so many times, right? I mean, people go to an event or they read a book and they start, reading it and going, taking everything. All that motivation comes in, like you mentioned, but motivation can be short lived, right?
Yep.
And then after the event, what happens? A month goes by, 2 months goes by, 3 months goes by, and then they don't remember what they learned at the event, and then they end up in the same position they were in months ago. Why? Because they didn't take action. Come on, man. Stop embarrassing yourself. That's not the way to do it. You got to take action.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. I think the idea that, speed of taking action and quantity of action that you take, massive action, if you put those together versus a heavy dose of planning, speed and quantity of action will beat it. And the reason being is it's going to give you a lens on things that planning will never see, because planning is inaction, and it's not going to allow you to so you can get into the testing phase, because the testing phase will allow you to see the things with clarity that's around you, because you're just in such massive action. You're going to see, oh, option A, B, C, those are all things that, I shouldn't be doing because I'm in action. Whereas in the planning phase, you'd never see those as challenges until you actually start.
Yeah, no, action is such a crucial step in success. When you take enormous action, you eliminate, failure as an option, and eventually you're going to succeed because even if you have a setback, as long as you're taking action and you're learning from that setback, guess what? Eventually you're going to succeed. Eventually you're going to hit that goal.
Yeah, I
Rome
think it
wasn't
was,
built overnight.
yeah, it was Bill Gates, I think he said most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 5. And I
Yeah,
think when you say that, I think you're saying the same thing, in the sense that, yeah, you know what? You're in action, and guess what? Maybe you thought it was going to be 3 months. It's going to be 6 months. Maybe you thought it was going to be 5 years. It might be 7, but you're still going to get to that goal.
yeah,
Right. I love it.
absolutely. Because it takes time, man. Greatness takes time. It ain't going to happen overnight. you got to work for it. You got to you got to be on that grind. And right when you're about to give up, push a little bit more, and that's when it's gonna happen. That's when the door starts opening. That's when the mountain starts getting moved, man.
I love it. I love it. From people to try to reach you, my understanding is to go to your website with joerivera.com is the best way to reach you. And I know you've got a lot of things on the go. The biggest thing I think, it'd be great for people to book you at their next event. You're passionate about motivation. You're passionate about action, which I think is one of the biggest things to take hold. I think people should reach out and book with you and get you on their stage, because that would be a beautiful thing to hear your story. Your story's got to be told more.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, reach out to me. All the event planners, I'm available. Let's talk about my availability to come and speak at your event.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, with that, guys, we'd like to thank Joe Rivera for being our guest here today on the Money, the Mindset, the Mentoring podcast, and we will see you guys on the next one.